Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma Vishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. The text, the fall of human intellect. You have something? Yes.
Why are we concerned about gaining the right knowledge?
The question. Why are we interested in gaining the right knowledge? That is the question. The purpose of knowledge is to understand oneself and understand things around. Without knowledge, one will not be able to understand oneself and one will not be able to understand the things around. Therefore, knowledge is a necessity to understand oneself and to understand things around us. Since without knowledge, understanding is not possible, we need to have the right knowledge. And why are we concerned about having the right knowledge? We are concerned about having the right knowledge because all our choices and actions are going to be based on this. Since all our choices and actions are based on this, it is very important for a human being to have the right knowledge. Without knowledge, if choices are made, the consequences is very hurtful. After knowing the consequences, you will know what to choose, what not to choose. Therefore, the consequences are not that painful. Knowledge is needed for that. Doing the wrong thing is so joyful, so pleasant in the beginning. It gives such a pleasant thing in the beginning. And doing the right thing is so painful in the beginning, isn't it? That's why knowledge is required. You follow? Making the wrong choice, doing that which is so tempting, which is so, knowledge is required for that. You follow? See, most of the time in life, knowing what is wrong, a person makes a choice, what to do. That's why knowledge is so important. The intellect is so important. Are you able to follow? You know that this should not be, you should not be doing it. As you venture into doing the wrong thing, something in you tells you don't, but you just cannot, but you are just not able to hold yourself. The mind just, pushes you into that situation, as though you're possessed by something that you have absolutely no say or control on what is happening. You follow? Therefore, knowledge is required. Are you okay? The fall of the human intellect. The book. we have seen the intellect is the penetrative capacity. Intellect means that penetrative capacity. That is what intellect is all about. Penetrative capacity as in, to understand intellect, two words has to be understood very clearly. The two words are drishta and adrishta. Again, I repeat, if you want to understand the intellect, these two words must be clear, drishta and adrishta. If these two words, drishta and adrishta, is not clear, intellect will not be understood. And the word adrishta today is so misused, misunderstood. That's why it is so difficult to use this word. For those who are not used to this Indian language, it's very easy to understand the word adrishta. For those who are used to this Indian language, they cannot understand the word adrishta. How much ever you say this, they will still go back saying it is adrishta means or romba adrishta adichichu sir, they will say, isn't it? The fellow, if the fellow has won a lottery, they will say, oh, this fellow got a luck, isn't it? He's got a. So if you understanding intellect requires understanding these two terms, drishta and adrishta. It is adrishta that requires penetrating capacity. Drishta means that which can be seen, perceived, understood. Adrishta means which you have to penetrate, and then only you can know it. So adrishta means, drishta means seen. Adrishta means unseen. Intellect is required to see the unseen. What is seen, intellect is not required because that is there anyway. Therefore, in order to understand the importance of intellect, why do we have to use these two terms? The worldly knowledges, the science, the technology, etc., all makes you believe that everything in life can be made into drishta. Vedanta comes and says, no, 99% of life is adrishta by nature. Adrishta by nature doesn't mean luck. Adrishta here means unless you penetrate, you will not be able to understand it. And intellect is that penetrating capacity. Again, I repeat, intellect is that penetrating capacity which will help you to understand the adrishta part of life. And once you understand the adrishta part of life, you have learned the knowledge of life and living. And what is known as the knowledge of life and living? Vedanta. So Vedanta is the knowledge of life and living. The knowledge of life and living is very important because life revolves around the principle of adrishta, not drishta. Therefore, the intellect has to be exercised. If the adrishta is not understood, by default, you will go by drishta. By default, you will go by drishta. What is drishta? Eat a chocolate, there is a joy. No, what is your problem? That's all it is, isn't it? I like a person, go and hug that person, joy. That's it. What is your problem? Where is that is drishta, it is. Are you able to follow? This is drishta. Likes can give you joy, dislikes gives you pain. Therefore, court likes and avoid dislikes is drishta. What is adrishta? Exactly the opposite. Doesn't mean you have to court your dislikes, not in that sense. acting on likes and dislikes, what happens? This is the adrishta part. Drishta says, sense context is joyful. Adrishta comes and says, dukkha yonaya, wombs of sorrow. So intellect is needed to understand the womb of sorrow. Because direct perception says there is joy in it. Why will anybody want even to penetrate deeper? Because there straight away it is understood. No? You follow the importance of intellect. I'm just giving one example of what is this drishta and adrishta. Second aspect of life, adrishta, is because it is full of paradoxes. We have seen this before in some context. Life is full of this paradoxes. And what do you need to do? At every level, there is a paradox. Paradox means what? What does paradox mean? What you see is not what it is the paradox. If what you see is what it is, there is no penetrating capacity required because you have already known it. You have already understood it. Again, I repeat. If what you see is what it is drishta. Penetrating capacity isn't required at all. But since what you see is not what it is, the paradoxes is the adrishta aspect of life. It means you need to exercise your intellect, develop the penetrating capacity, understand the paradox, and make the right choices. It is simply a factor of understanding the paradox. And very difficult is to understand this, and very difficult is to understand this paradox. Now, what is paradox? We have seen this any number of times. I'm just repeating it. In Atma Bodha, we studied all this. We're just repeating it again from Atma Bodha. Penetrating capacity in life is required because of 4 factors. The 4 pairs. It is the 4 pairs that makes intellect very important. The first pair, the essentials and the non-essentials. The second pair, the means and the end. Means in plural, end in singular. Not means and ends. Means in plural, end in singular. Meaning, that is the end finally. That's why it's called Vedanta, the end. What is the end? The means in plural, the end, second. The third is karyam and akaryam. What ought to be done, what ought not to be done. Karyam means that which ought to be done. Akaryam means that which ought not to be done. The fourth is the fourth pair. Nityam and Anityam. Eternal and the ephemeral. The temporary and the permanent. Carefully understand, we are not saying real and unreal. We are saying temporary and permanent. The first lesson of thinking is this. It's a vicious cycle of thinking, wrong thinking. What is the wrong vicious cycle? We are confused because we use wrong words. Because we use wrong words, we get confused. It's a cycle. Yeah. Again, I repeat, we are confused. So we use wrong words. And we use wrong words, the confusion gets more. That's why conversation and communication is so difficult, because everybody uses wrong words, but according to them, it's the right word. That's why here we are very careful in repeating. I'm to a point of fault. I'm deliberately slow sometimes. It's called punarakriti dosha. Punarakriti dosha means you don't repeat the same thing again and again and again. But here, the dosha also we do sometimes. Repeat it so many times. Why? Because the right words must be used. But you don't use the right words. You use the wrong words. What is the wrong word? Instead of saying real and unreal, you should not use the word real and unreal. You should use the word permanent and temporary. So, having a clarity on using certain words brings about the power of the intellect. When we use right words, carefully follow. When we use right words, knowledge is clear. Remember the law of the intellect. Vijay, idu purinjaduna you will understand. Knowledge is not gradual, clarity is gradual. Remember this always. Knowledge is never gradual. It is your clarity that grows gradually. Knowledge remains the same only. Knowledge always remains the same. 2 plus 2 equals 4 remains the same. Even in the very first class, 2 plus 2 equals 4 will remain the same. Knowledge will not grow gradually. It is your clarity that grows gradually. Clarity is growing gradually because doubts are getting cleared. Purida sequence, words, knowledge, Ram Subramanian. Sequence Purida, words, knowledge, clarity. What grows gradually? The clarity grows gradually. And why do we say clarity grows gradually? Because doubts are getting cleared. And it is the right use of words that will clear the doubts. That's why, as we go into the book also, we'll be revisiting all this again and again and again till we finish this book. That is why we say you should know in which context implied meaning is used, in which context direct meaning is used. What should be used in one context should not be used in another context. That's why it's called clearer thinking. And that is what intellect is all about. And this clearer thinking is what helps the intellect to guide the mind and actions. Finally, I'm jumping 5 steps, 10 steps, and going to the final last stage now. Intellect is so required because of what? All human beings are experience hunters. They are all constantly hunting for experience. Again, I repeat, all human beings are experience hunters. Intellect says experience cannot dispel ignorance. It is knowledge that can dispel ignorance. A person tries meditation for what? In the name of for the spiritual growth, a person will sit and try doing meditation. By doing meditation, what is a person trying? The person is trying for an experience. Even in this classroom, we want to make the experience better, isn't it? You go for a retreat, you have to make the retreat experience better, isn't it? Because all the time human beings are experience hunters. Because we only want good, pleasant experience all the time. Are you okay till now? Intellect comes and says, this kind of thinking is an addiction. It's an addiction. Why it is an addiction? Because it is not possible. What is not possible? You go for a good experience. That good experience leaves an impression in you. From next time, what do? You strive for a repeat experience, isn't it? You strive to repeat that same experience again and again and again, correct? If you have a profound experience, what will you do now? You will try to provide all the necessary conditions that produce that experience. So you can continue to have similar experiences or same experiences. And then what happens? You try all this, and then finally what happens? Disillusionment happens. Therefore, you come back and say, how it was so good that time, it wasn't that good, sir, this time, isn't it? Anniki, it was so good, but today it wasn't that good. Aparna, you follow? Intellect says this kind of living life is drishta based. And this kind of, what will be the quality of this life? What will be the quality of this life? The quality of this life will necessarily have to be very poor. Poor means worried, anxious, stress, strain, depression, sorrow, suffering, crying, whatever be it, isn't it? You can add up as many synonyms as you want for this. Why? Because you are all hunting experience. Sensory based it is. Vedanta says it should be knowledge. That is why we say, even meditation, if you come and say, I had an experience of divine, Mandukya Upanishad will say, you are hallucinating. What are you talking? Experience of divine. Because again, what you will do, you will try to recreate that situation. What is that particular situation? In a particular situation, so you had one particular agarbatti, you had one particular light, you had one particular temperature, you had one particular thing. So all put together gave you a very pleasant experience. Now what do? You want to repeat that experience again and again and again. Correct? This is how all addiction starts. This is how all addictions starts. You want to get to that. You want to get it again. So what do? You will try to provide all the necessary conditions that produced that experience before. So you can have a similar pleasant experience. So you can continue to have pleasant experiences right through. What is wrong in this? What is wrong in this? You become experience dependent. You are not living life through knowledge. Are you able to follow now? You become experience dependent. And the experience irundha you can be. Unless that experience happens, your mind will not be at rest. Some past experience, something. The mind wants it. The mind wants it. The mind wants to repeat it again and again and again. Are you okay till now? No situation No person can give it. No situation, no person, no object can give it again and again and again. Therefore, what will you do? What will you do? Either change the person, change the object, or increase the either change the person, change the object, or increase the contact period. All this is drishta based living. Intellect comes and says this kind of living, what happens? Are you able to follow now? This is how knowledge is teaching. I'm just giving an example of how knowledge teaches. Experience says, I am happy, I am unhappy. No need for any knowledge now. I am happy, I am unhappy. Experience. Very difficult to accept the knowledge. Why it is very difficult to accept the knowledge? Because knowledge always is the exact opposite of your experience. Knowledge and experience are together, no, sir. No. Knowledge and experience are always diametrically opposite. If experience can teach you, that's why I keep giving this logic, simple logic. Experience is the best teacher. Experience is the best teacher. Experience is not the best teacher. For how many experiences you have had in life? Still go back and do you burnt your fingers once, you will want to go back again and burn your fingers. No. What did that experience teach you? What did that experience? What have you learned from that experience? You cannot learn from that experience. Why? Because there's an addiction to that experience already. What can you learn? Because there's an addiction to that experience and you want that experience again and again and again. Knowledge gradually helps you out of what? Experience dependent. So intellect na enna solranum? Freedom from experiences. Freedom from seeking experiences. That's all intellect is. Beautiful is the importance of this intellect. Prasad, purida? Intellect means seeking freedom from experiences. You don't seek experiential proof. It should be knowledge proof, not experiential proof. That experiential proof is drishta based. Knowledge is adrishta by nature. Are you understanding these two words now? Experience is drishta based and knowledge is adrishta based. It means the words have to be knowledge is communicated through words. Since knowledge is communicated through words, the words has to be clear, the words has to be precise, and it should help you to remove your doubts. Are you able to follow the sequence? How teaching happens, how intellect grows through knowledge. Knowledge comes to you by teaching. Correct? Again, I repeat. Intellect grows by right knowledge, and knowledge comes from the teaching. For example, a statement is made. Mind is a myth. Understand the statement. Mind is a myth. Hard to accept it. Very, very, very hard to accept that mind is a myth. If I am trying to explain how it is a myth, then it's not an arbitrary statement. There is a teaching involved. Are you able to understand the difference now? Carefully follow the sequence. As long as there is a teaching happening, the intellect is exercised. That is why he says the way to go about this teaching methodology, the way for you to expose yourself to the right teaching is don't take things for granted, question. Don't take things for granted, question. Are you able to understand the connection now? That's why he keeps on saying, don't take things for granted. Keep questioning, keep questioning, keep questioning. For instance, if I say, look at these two statements. I think he is doing a good job. Statement number 1, I think he is doing a good job. Statement number 2, sky is not blue. Two statements. I think he is doing a good job. Number 2, sky is not blue. Is there any difference between these two statements? In the first statement, it is my opinion, you can just take it or leave it. You need not be concerned about it because it is an opinion on a relative issue. It is something that is spoken about, something that is relative by nature. Since it is spoken about something relative by nature, it constantly keeps changing. Supposing if I say, there is no blue sky in spite of you seeing a blue sky. Look at the difference here. Even though there is no blue sky, in spite of you seeing a blue sky, if it was taught to you that there is no blue sky, does it belong to drishta or adrishta? Adrishta. Because you are seeing something, but then you are not agreeing to what you are seeing. You are seeing something, but you are not accepting what you are seeing. You are seeing something, you are not agreeing to what you are seeing. Then only the intellect starts functioning. The moment you have agreed to what you have seen, intellect has stopped functioning. Intelligence will continue. You can become very intelligent. You can become, but then what is the difference between intelligence and intellect? That also we'll be studying in this. There is one whole chapter on that. As I said last week, we'll be only doing a few basic words that is necessary to understand before we venture into the book, The Fall of the Human Intellect and the Methodology of Teaching. In spite of you seeing a blue sky, if it is said that the sky is not blue, you have two possibilities. You have two choices. What are the two choices? One choice is to reject it straight away. Why? Because it doesn't go with your experience. It is not in line with your experience. Intellect is very poor here. It's not at all functioning because the pramanam here is your experience. What is the proof of knowledge? What is valid knowledge according to you? What you experience is valid knowledge according to you, which is wrong. What you experience is not a valid knowledge. Then what it is? Somebody is saying the sky is not blue, and there is no reason for that person to come and say something which is diametrically opposite of what it is. Now, how does intellect operate now? You keep aside Your logic, reason, your experience, you keep all that aside and follow what that person is trying to say. In that process, intellect is exercised. That is the method by which the intellect is exercised. Now, if you try to bring in your logic and experience to understand the sky is not blue, you'll only memorize and write in exams. Sky is not blue. But in your, what is your conviction deep down? Your deep-rooted conviction is sky is blue only. Are you able to follow? This is the difference between intelligence and intellect. You will be saying sky is not blue, but deep inside your conviction is sky is blue. Why? Because you are addicted to experience. The challenge is, that is why intellect is so difficult. Intellect is so difficult because to break the addiction to experience, how to break it? God only knows how it is going to get broken, isn't it? Because experience gives you a direct pratyaksha knowledge. Remember the pramanams that we spoke last week? Did we speak about it last week? The pramanams, the valid sources of knowledge, irrefutable source of knowledge. The three is in relation to one. Adrashta is in relation to Vedas. Pratyaksha Anumana Upamana is in relation to all other worldly knowledges. Shabda is a unique, Shabda means Agama, means Vedas, is a unique authoritative source of knowledge. Why? Because they are the ones who sat and thought about the paradoxes of life and resolved it. It is their exclusive area of inquiry. Since it is their exclusive area of inquiry, if you want to understand it, you should follow that particular logic and reason. Therefore, what is intellect here? Anything arrived at, any irrefutable conclusion arrived at by applying the required logic and reason. Not your logic and reason. When we say your logic and reason, means your logic and reason springs from your experience. Supposing if you have had some good experiences with me, the classes will look very good. If you have had some bad experience with me, the class will look very bad. Mixed experience means mixed. It's lost. What is lost? Intellect is not the intellect is not exercised at all. Lastly, Vedas and Vedanta cannot be self-taught. Self-help doesn't apply here. Self-help is the worst help in Vedanta. Self-help is the best help in ignorance. If you want to continue to remain in ignorance, you can do self-help. Self-help is the best help. No, sir. No. Vedanta is very clear in that. It cannot be done by yourself, because there is a system, there is a method, there is a methodology, there is a system. It has to be learned through that. It has to be learned through that method and the system. It cannot be done randomly. It cannot be done randomly. What is this attitude called? You can call it as open-mindedness. You should come with open-mindedness. You can call it open-mindedness. You can call it always an attitude of a student. You can use any word, but all that matters is what? Ultimately, you don't bring in your experience as a pramanam to understand Vedanta. That is why so difficult to understand and accept Vedanta, and growth is not at all happening, is because we immediately want to go back and look at our experiences and see if there is any change in that. Are you able to follow? After learning something, where do we look for to see whether a change has happened or not? Experience only, isn't it? Again, I go back into that. That itself is fundamentally opposed to that. The development, the very process of development of the intellect. Because what you experience is not what it is. Since what you experience is not what it is, how can that be the yardstick to measure your growth? You can hear it any number of times, still you will go back and look at what? Look at your experience. Others also look at the way that you behave. Others also look at it and say, nothing has changed in you. Therefore, classes are. You yourself feel nothing has changed. Others also say nothing has changed. Upanishad says that's how intellect grows. That's how intellect grows. Like the frog jump. Like the frog jump. You don't see the frog exercising for the jump, do you? What is frog jump? See, if you see the frog sitting and doing some exercise and ready for the jump, you can understand something, isn't it? The frog is not doing that. It is simply sitting as though not doing anything at all. And then there is a jump. And when it jumps, there. Frog jump Upanishad, isn't it? Frog Upanishad it is. What is that frog Upanishad? You simply sit and work and work and work within yourself. No interest on looking at, no interest in looking at your experience, no looking at what has changed in you. Takeaway, isn't it? No interested in the takeaways. Intellect starts growing. Intellect starts growing. That intellect has fallen. That is the book. That intellect has fallen. When it said it has fallen, what is the fall? The word fall implies what? The word fall implies not used, not exercised. When the valuable thing is not used, exercised, it will. That's why, see, a ordinary mechanical thing like a car, if you don't use it for a while, you say, you have to keep it, no. Use pannine irukonu sir, appadan it will running condition, no. If you don't keep it in running condition, that is the fall. So the fall of the human intellect, the word fall here implies what? The word fall here implies not used. And if you have to use it, what all factors you should remember? At least one factor you remember. What is one factor in today's one? Don't be an experience hunter. Don't be an experience hunter. Don't look at yourself 5 years back and today. Better no, sir. It should be like a frog jump. It should be like the frog jump. Why? Because The fundamental problem is what? Bondage is the fundamental problem. Bondage is the problem. How can you get rid of the bondage? By breathing exercises. How can you get rid of the bondage? By meditation. Sitting with the eyes closed and doing om, om, om. How can you get rid of bondage like that? How can you get rid of bondage? By breathing exercises. How can you get rid of bondage? By any method. Bodhonya sadhane yogi sakshan mokshaika sadhanam akasya vakni vajnanam vina moksho na siddhyati. There is no other method other than knowledge. Why? Because that ignorance, that bondage is a superimposition. Are you able to follow? Since bondage is a superimposition, what you need to do? You need to understand it rightly. That's all. Then it becomes very simple. A superimposition can be destroyed only by knowledge, correct? You are in the desert thirsty. The deer is also desert. The deer is also thirsty in the desert, but the deer will chase to drink that water. Will you run to drink that water? Will you run? You will not run. No. How much ever thirsty you are, will you try to drink that water? Are you able to remember that example? Mirage. A deer is thirsty. You are also thirsty. Where? In the desert. And you see a mirage. And how does the mirage appear? Like water. What does the deer think? The deer think that it's water and it runs. Will you run? You don't run. Why? Because you know what you see is not what you see is not what it is. Supposing if you are not seeing it as it is, what will you do? You will also run thinking that the mirage water can quench your thirst. This is what is called ignorance. This is what is called ignorance. Your inner thirst, you are trying to quench by the mirage of the desert water. All human beings are trying to quench their thirst. By what? By the mirage water. Is it possible? Is it? No, sir. Just give me one more day, one more thing. We know how to do it. We know how to do it. We know how to do it. Are you able to follow? It is a desert, it is mirage, and there is no water in it. The truth has to be known. The truth has to be known. And for that truth to be known, you should not believe in your eyes. You should not believe in your eyes means you should not believe in the world. Are you able to follow now? The world gives you happiness. The objects and beings gives you happiness. Vedanta says, no. What will you say? Not everything, sir, but some gives. No. That specific person, not everybody, but that one person gives, sir. You don't know that. That you don't know. That one person has the potential to make me. That one person has the potential to keep me happy. That one person has the potential to make me happy. It is like the deer saying, the mirage water can quench my thirst. Truth is to be known. Truth is to be known. What is the truth? Mirage water cannot quench your thirst. Since truth is to be known, the pursuit of truth requires a valid knowledge. And through the intellect alone, you can gain that valid knowledge. That is the importance of that intellect. The fall of the human intellect is, it is not gaining that valid knowledge, it is chasing instead of gaining this valid knowledge, what the intellect is gaining, what the intellect is chasing. What is intellect chasing? It is chasing a knowledge that mirage water can quench your thirst. இப்ப புரியுதா வித்தியாசம் ரவி? That is why we say all worldly knowledges are delusory by nature. In one word, all the worldly knowledges are dismissed. People get very upset. How can you say that? Because it has made life so, it has made life so beautiful, it has made life so better. How can you say all the worldly knowledges are delusory by nature? And the truth is, it is delusory by nature. Why? Because it aids to the fall. It aids the fall. What is the fall? What is the fall? Mirage water has the capacity to quench your thirst. Mirage water has the capacity to quench your thirst. All that is needed is what? Just little bit more effort. Just put in a little bit more effort. The mirage water will quench your thirst. You can keep putting in more and more and more effort. More the effort you put, more disappointment it is. More the effort you put, more frustrating it is, isn't it? See, at least 50 years back, 100 years back, banks will collapse maybe every 30 years, 40 years, isn't it? In the last 20 years, it is collapsing. Every third year, it is collapsing, and yet everybody believes in it. What? And they are collapsing because of loans, and still they will. What? Every 3 years also, if you don't understand, in 15 years later, it will happen every year. Still nobody will understand, isn't it? But economy is growing, no, sir. Isn't it? Economy is growing, no. What is your problem? The knowledge comes and says, don't put your faith on the mirage water. And you will put your faith only where? You will say yes, yes, yes in the class. After the class, the first message is, but sir, use your thing and help me to get happiness from the mirage water. One day I will understand mirage water has nothing, it cannot quench my thirst. But right now, help me to quench. What is the answer? What is the answer? The answer is no, it cannot be. Maybe maybe we should find a better teacher. Maybe we should go and find a better teacher who can help us do both. What? First help me, first give me the mirage water and quench my thirst, and then prove it to me that it can't help, isn't it? This is the fall of the intellect. Are you able to follow now? The fall implies what? The intellect, that is to be a wonderful instrument, intellect, that can penetrate through the drishta and understand the adrishta aspect of life and live life according to that adrishta part of life, has fallen into what? Has fallen into drishta. அதுக்குதான் இங்கிலீஷ்ல ஒரு வார்த்தை சொன்னோம், எக்ஸ்பீரியன்ஸ். இந்த திருஷ்டான்றது எக்ஸ்பீரியன்ஸ் ஹண்டர். All the time we have to make the experience better. Finally, understand this. I touched based on this last week also. Again, it is very important. And till the end of this book, I will keep repeating it to the point of where one by one start disconnecting from the class, isn't it? Till that point of time, it will be repeated again and again and again. What? A pramanam has three characteristics. A pramanam means valid knowledge, valid source of knowledge. That valid source of knowledge has a few characteristics that is necessary to call it as a pramanam. The first characteristic is what? Is exclusivity. That is, no two pramanams can access the same field of knowledge. No two pramanams can access the same field of knowledge. Then only it can be a valid source. Second characteristic is what? Because of this exclusivity, one pramana cannot negate or support the knowledge gained through the another pramana. Second point. The third is what?
Self.
It is self-proven. It is said in Vedas, therefore it is correct. It is told by the eyes, therefore it is correct. Charcoal is black in color. It's a valid knowledge. Supported by ears, nose, tongue, touch allama. No, it is supported only by eyes, and only eyes alone is the proof. There is no other proof for it. Able to follow? Similarly, if I have to accept Vedanta, Veda as a pramana, the intellect, starting point of intellect is this. To accept Vedanta as a pramana means what? To accept Vedanta as a pramana, it means what? What is known through Veda is not known by any other pramanam. What is known through Veda cannot be negated by any other pramanam. The third, the very word of the Veda is the proof. Tasmat shastram pramanam te. Tasmat shastram pramanam te karya vyavastitau. Wherever you have this, all these things, Arjuna, Shastra should be a pramanam. Why? The very knowing through Veda is the proof. But, sir, what is told in the Vedas has to be supported by quantum physics, no? The Upanishad Rishi will laugh at this, isn't it? Quantum physicist will come and say, Vedanta and quantum physics are one and the same. Correct. The tongue has tasted the charcoal and agreed to what? It is black in color. Does it make any sense? And yet everybody wants that, no? Ram Subramanian, புரியுதா? இப்ப சிரிப்பா இருக்குது. You are listening in the class, you smile at it because it's so absurd. That's why you are smiling at it. But then, rest of the time, that's what I'll be looking for constantly, a proof from there. That is why that is known as the fall of the intellect. Does it mean the words of Vedas have to be used, has to be taken blindly? No, no. There is a teaching method, there is the logic, there is the reason, there is an analysis done. Therefore, it is knowledge, not simply assertions. Are you able to understand now how through the Vedas, through the study of Vedanta, the intellect gets strengthened? Because what is accepted is Vedanta as a pramanam, which is exclusive, which need not be where you don't seek support from other systems for that. You don't go and seek support from the other systems, isn't it? But invariably, fall of the intellect will do what? Invariably, the fall of intellect will take support from others. Why? Because I don't have conviction in this pramanam, and if that proves it, therefore Vedanta is correct. I always ask, or I always tell my colleagues, why do you have to say science says so when no scientist says Vedanta says so, isn't it? When they are operating within their pramanam, we should operate within our pramanam. There is no need to borrow that and come and prove it here. Why? It means the very basic of thinking itself is not understood. What is the very basics of thinking? Pramanam itself is not understood rightly. Pramanam doesn't mean dictatorship. Pramanam doesn't mean which will stop your thinking. Pramanam means that will allow you to question, or it will ask a question. That's why it's called valid source of knowledge. Are you able to follow? It will ask you to question, it will question. If you don't question, it will question. Because therefore, instead of simply saying the sky is not blue, they say the sky is not blue, and then they follow it up with arguments to prove that the sky is not blue. The fall of the intellect is what? Now, what is the fall of the intellect? Not knowing which pramanam to be applied where. When it concerns matters of life, science and technology cannot be the pramanam. You make use of it. That doesn't become the pramanam to the... So, what is the pramanam for the life and living? The pramanam for life and living is Vedanta. Traditionally, they say Vedas. Nowadays, we are using the word Vedanta. Both are one and the same. For Vedanta, so Vedanta is part of the Vedas only. No, where is it separate? The very knowing is a pramanam. Therefore, to conclude, to accept Vedanta as a pramana is to accept what? The மாதிரி ஒரு 4-5 formulas வச்சுட்டு we are going to drill through this entire fall of human intellect book. And then if you go to Vedanta treatise and study Bhagavad Gita or Upanishads and all that, oh my God, you start seeing it. You start seeing it so differently. When I say starting it so differently means in the way it ought to be seen, that's all. In the way it ought to be seen, you can see. Why? Because it's to accept what is known through Veda is not known by any other pramana. Point number 1. Point number 2. What is known through Veda cannot be negated by the others. Because valid knowledge is already established, self-proven. The very knowing through Veda is proof of what is known. What is the fall of the intellect here? Even this basic clarity in thinking isn't there, and it is all getting mixed up. That's why we are so confused in our thinking. We don't know whether we are, science also we don't follow properly. Vedanta also we don't follow properly. Just a chivda of everything, mixture of everything. Why? Because at the end of that day, we are all hunting for, we are all hunting for a pleasant experience. Who's bothered about fall of the intellect and shabda and drishta and adrishta and all, sir? And all that we are looking for is a pleasant experience. That's why even death also we want it as a pleasant death, no? Correct? Even death also, how we want death also to happen? Anayasa marana, isn't it? Isn't it? Even in the experience of death. So all along, what are including death? What are we hunting for? A pleasant experience. A pleasant experience. That is the fall of the intellect. That is the fall of the intellect. With this, we conclude for today. And from next week, we'll move into the text and we will see what we can learn from the text.